Welcome back. And for those who are just tuning in, final score, Grey Knights 90 to a Custodes 59. As always, I definitely recommend going and checking that out because this is a debut for the Custodes. Debut and elimination.
Not much of a debut.
And debut and elimination from our tournament. The Custodes are now eliminated. Then next week it will be two separate games. And this is not a bracket where armies are moving on because Lane will, if the Necrons were to say win, Lane is not going to be playing Necrons.
No, I mean, I'm not going to be playing as Necrons. I play against Necrons all the time, but I'm not going to be playing as Necrons.
So that does kind of manipulate which armies will be facing off, depending on which armies win in this tournament, in this style, in this matchup. But for right now, the Grey Knights have moved on. The Custodes are eliminated. Hooray. And as I always say, and what I love most, silver greater than gold.
Sure, I guess. Today they were.
Today they definitely were. And as far as everything I can say for the Grey Knights right now, because I want to talk more about the Custodes, what I can say for the Grey Knights right now is Dread Knights, man, they're awesome. Psy Cannons are great. Dread Knights are great. Dread Knights do so much work. The Tech Marine, this wasn't his day. I kind of felt that going into it. But the daisy chain of having him on the objective and then having a vehicle 3 inches away to then give him loan op was really nice. So I was very happy for that, for the overall points and point cost. So I will splash him in another list, let him make another run. No issues there. Everything else did its work. You were able to pick up the Terminators. Terminators are bulky. They're definitely tough to take down. Terminators did a lot of work. They scored me a lot of points this game. They scored Assassinate. They scored Capture Enemy Outpost. They were storming hostile objectives. I don't even think I had that as a secondary, but they did it anyways. They secured no man's land. They did everything. I love those guys. That 10-man squad with the Grandmaster. So good. So nice.
They're tough to kill, and every turn one of them comes back anyways because of the Apothecary in there.
Yep, and then OC3 with Banner. So all positive things there. Good job, Grey Knights. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. You did awesome today. Now to the Custodes. Let's talk about that.
Do we have to?
So in the words of Dr. Phil, how did they really make you feel?
Poorly, I guess. Custodes just seem to have no synergy with their rules or anything. Nothing really works well. Other than still Kyria Draxus is still great in a squad of Custodian Guard because she benefits from all the things they benefit from, like the shoot first, the stratagems, the rerolling wounds. She benefits from all that stuff. But other than that, Grey Knights, everything works together very well. All the movement shenanigans work together well, and the teleporting and all that stuff works really well together. Custodes, everything feels very separate, and the buffs they have now, the stratagems just don't feel particularly useful in most cases. Like, you can give a shooting unit sustained, but most of their shooting units don't do much. Anyways, people on the internet have complained about the Custodes Codex, so I'm not going to do that anymore. But it definitely does feel like a step down from where they were before. I know they're tough to balance with their durability and the
same with Imperial Knights. It's that same kind of column.
Yeah, I mean, their durability and combined with the fact that they do still hit really hard in combat when they get there, especially in this detachment where you can take the shield host's ability once per game to wah, like the orcs do, and get you're proccing your katas on 5s instead of just 6s, and you get the extra AP in combat. Some of that stuff didn't matter as much today because the extra AP against Grey Knights isn't a big deal because most of them have 4-up invulns, but still, you have a good turn of impact there, and they can still wreck things if you can get into position right. But other than that...
And just for clarification, because I know sometimes when I'm listening to something, I'm really confused. We're saying the WA because the orcs have the WA, where it's once per game pop. What's the actual name of the ability?
Martial Mastery, I believe, is the name of the ability.
That's closely into that. But yeah, that's what, because of the fact that it is just a beginning of the battle round, once per time effect, that's why Lane has been referring to as well and was referring to in the same as the game too. So if you're curious and like, why does he keep saying that? That's why. Because we know the orcs for it, not the Custodes.
Yeah, it's called Martial Mastery. I was right. And just once per game at the start of a battle round, I choose to activate this, and I get it until the beginning of the next battle round, and it really just affects all of combat. So when I have my martial katas in the close combat stage and the fight stage, normally those things proc on 6s, lethals or sustained, and now in this they do it on 5s. So my lethals or sustains pop off on 5s, and then everybody gets extra AP in combat. So it does make them hit harder. They do have a big turn of punching really well, but it's difficult to manage because you have to declare it in the start of the battle round. So if you go second, you're going to have to tell your opponent, hey, on this turn, I'm going to hit hard. So they may be able to counterplay to that. So it can be powerful, but it can also kind of just let your opponent know they need to back off for this turn and stay out of fighting range. So
unlike with things like orcs, where it's really hard to dodge that, especially with advance and charge and stuff like that, and it's a little bit different in that realm, especially now with like orcs having the ability to do it twice over the course of the game and stuff like that. And that was one thing I was going to comment on, is like a big difference with that with orcs is your delivery system is not as strong. You know, orcs do have a much stronger delivery system to get those units there, especially with advance and charge, being one of the perks that comes from when they do pop the wall. You are just, you're on what you're on. And granted, yeah, you can deep strike to get to all these locations. You do have units like the Venatari, but the Venatari are, I mean, they're good, but
they're extremely expensive. It's 200 points.
Expensive.
200 points for 3 of them.
And then you're looking at things like you're really putting like, it's such a slow play where it's like, first I'm gonna put them here because I'm gonna rapid ingress. Now they're gonna jump over here. Now I'm gonna pop this ability. It feels like you're playing in slow motion. Now the Blade Champion was still very strong. The Blade Champion were super strong. I think
if you're looking at competitive play, I think you're going to see people running 3 squads of Wardens led by 3 Blade Champions, because that gives them the advanced charge, it lets them reroll charges, and the durability of the Warden is going to stick through and help them survive a little bit longer.
Now, is there anything that shuts down phase per phase on abilities that you're not allowed to trigger except for once per phase, moving through some of the defensive effects that they can bring to the table?
In this detachment, the only defensive abilities you have, obviously the inbuilt Wardens is good for any Custodes, regardless of which detachment.
It's not one per unit. It's not one unit per phase can use the Feel No Pain.
No, they can all do it.
You could do it.
They can all do it. Yeah, it's only once per game, and it's only for one phase. And you have to declare it at the beginning of the phase, so it can be baited out. You know, you can go out, then your opponent can make it seem like they're going to target 3 units. You pop off the Feel No Pain on all 3 of them, and then maybe they just shoot at 1, and then the rest of the game, the other Wardens won't be able to pop it off. So there is counterplay to that. Defensively, the only other strats, there's a Feel No Pain to Mortals. I could put a 4-up Feel No Pain to Mortals on this. Didn't need to do that because DJ rolled so poorly on his tank shock that he only got 2 wins through that.
We don't need to talk about that.
Well, you won. I get to gloat where I can gloat, where I can find it. But other than that, they can, for 1 CP, be -1 to hit in combat. I think I did use that once.
You did it when
yeah. But other than that, it doesn't
nothing else that really is going to slow you down from doing that. I mean, I know that's because that's some of the things that sometimes when you look at a unit, you go, "Oh, this unit's so defensive," but then it's like, well, it's defensive because you're using a strat or you're doing this ability, and then as you go down the chain, it's like, well, you can only do that once per phase per unit. So now having multiple of those may not be as much value.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I do like with Custodes as opposed to against Imperial Knights in that sense of expensive things, your expense is infantry. So you can still at least move through walls and play the mission. And you're not giving as much, you really don't give up a lot for secondary. Like as far as like kill secondaries, it's very difficult. Like the Assassinate was tough. The play that I made for Assassinate was to kill Trajan, and that failed. The play at the Shield Captain was a left field play. It was, I'm going to try
on a 9-inch charge, which you made, but
we did, right. And that was, okay, cool, there, I got my Assassinate points, but the play was into Trajan, which you were able to stop. And that's a nice thing is like, okay, my opponent has assassinated. Like there's things like that you can do to stop your opponent from getting kill secondaries as the game progresses. Oh, you have no prisoners. Here, let me put these -1s. Let me pop that feel no pain. Now you're not going to score those points on no prisoners.
Mhm.
Oh, you have bring it down. I have one vehicle in the entire list, as you have. So those are definite positives for you, but the kill secondaries only take up a small portion of the secondaries that are being played. And everything else, as far as the mission and stuff like that, a lot of times when you lose an objective over the course of the game, the no man's land ones, there may be no way for you to get it back.
Yeah.
Once I took that once I took that shield captain off that objective, I mean, yeah, your Caladius got it at the end of the game, but was there ever really another point to get that? And then the objective that was all the way over here on that flank, once the Alaris Custodes died, there was nothing else that really had that chance to get on that flank.
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing is that with the bikes being so wimpy and so expensive and weak, that's what's really hurting Custodes right now is how bad the bikes are.
Yeah. They have what I think is probably the worst special rule in the game.
Let's talk about what is it?
So I'll look it up and make sure I don't misquote it. It deserves
Worst
to be known.
special rule in the game.
Deserves
I'm trying to think. Like, man, that's a video That's a video in its own right. Just go through different armies and just go through what are the worst special rules in the entire game. I mean, there is definitely some bad ones. Like I'm just staring at my Necrons right now and thinking there's definitely some units that have really bad abilities. That's like, okay, but why though?
Yeah, so they have turbo boost. So if you advance them, they move 6 inches. That's fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can't advance.
They're once per game. Are you ready for this? Quicksilver execution. Once per battle, after this unit ends an advance move, you can select one enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, that it moved over during that move, and then roll 1d6 for each model in the unit, and for each 2-up, that enemy unit suffers 2 mortal wounds. So you fly over. For each model in the unit, you roll d6. On a 2-up, it does 2 mortal wounds. That sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except you have to advance, and there is no way to advance and shoot or advance and charge with this.
In the entire codex.
Yeah, like the blade champion gives it to infantry, but these are the bikes. There's no way to do it. So you give up their shooting and their fighting, which is going to be better than 2 mortal wounds per bike.
Right, because initially
it's a tremendous sacrifice because each one gets 5 attacks, strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage with lance. So when they make the charge, they're hitting very hard with the martial katas in there. I don't know when you would use that rule as opposed to just charging and fighting.
Because initially I was like, okay, cool. Because one of the things that I like to do with the wraiths that have a similar ability is it's when a model in this unit does that. So you can just move one model over and then all those other ones give you extra dice. At 2 mortal wounds, that's quite a bit.
But it requires that you advance.
You sacrifice your higher damage output.
Yeah.
Not just a move, an advance too, like you said. Like for the wraiths, it's a move.
Yeah, like with 3 bikes, you would probably get 6 mortal wounds, which is something. But then you sacrifice 15 attacks. Again, strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage with lance on the charge, and with the katas in effect, and they're shooting. They'll have either hurricane bolters or like little melta missiles on them.
I can't believe that there's no way to advance and charge advance and shoot in the entire codex. That's insane.
And it's once per game. It's like, well, if it's going to be once per game, don't make it advance. It's it's so useless.
What's their base move? 14.
It's probably just 12.
I mean, I guess it's like, haha, you're going to run to the corner and just run to the corner.
Yeah.
Go run and hide.
I guess, yeah.
So, any closing thoughts on the Custodes? Anything that you would, other than the Warden route?
Yeah, I like the Caladius grav tanks are still real good. They shoot real well. They're great for picking up vehicles. AP3 can miss out. You know, obviously, if you have cover, then you can armor contempt or something. And you have a 2-up save. It can be a problem. But the fact that it gets 4 shots, their strength 12, twin linked, AP3, D6 plus, I think, 2 damage. So it's a real good tank. And it's relatively durable because it's 14 wounds. It's 215 points as opposed to your 195 right, for your Nemesis Dread Knights.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's 20 points more than Nemesis Dread Knights. I don't think it's necessarily better than them because they have the ability to teleport and their 4-up invulns and their tank shock and their big close combat attacks and all their
Hammers.
shenanigans.
And hammers.
Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily better than that, but it's a good shooting platform. So if I was playing Custodes competitively, I'd have another 1 or 2 of them in the list. And then just Wardens. Yeah, Wardens and Venatari and Caladius. I think that's all I'd run if I was doing it competitively.
The Guard weren't bad. The Custodian Guard weren't bad.
Yeah.
Especially with Drax.
In this deployment, it was kind of tricky with Hammer and Anvil because it's tough to get mid-board where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Taking one Custodian Guard squad with Curia Draxus is a good idea. Hold your home field objective. Hopefully you don't roll a 1 on her can't be shot outside of 18 roll, but they're great for holding your home field objective because if anybody gets over there, they're going to shoot twice and probably re-roll wounds and do all their shenanigans. So, yeah, it's not a bad unit. But
no, not at all. Not at all. All right. Well, I think that wraps things up for us this evening. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.